Good afternoon, everybody. Alex StarCraft here, bringing you the ace match of this best of 3 series between WhiteRa, the red Protoss in the top right-hand corner, and Grubby, the blue Protoss in the bottom left-hand corner. As I've said before, this series is from the IEM Season 6 2012 World Championships, which took place about a month ago in Hanover, Germany. And of course, we have Grubby and WhiteRa dueling it out, 2 huge fan favorites. They are currently tied up 1-1. Both other games are on my channel. I'm not going to tell you what happens in them. One player wins one and one player wins the other. You guys should go check them out to see who and how. Both were, of course, excellent games with some very special tactics out of WhiteRa. And these games were played in the pools, and that is before the championship bracket. And the top players, I believe it was 5-person pools, top 3 make it into the championship bracket, something of that sort. So these players are not only competing for a spot in that championship bracket, and of course to stay alive in the tournament, but also in order to the first place from each pool was seeded actually into the round of 8. So that of course gave them a significant advantage, and so these guys are seeing if they can maybe get first place. Of course, I don't know the number of points each player in their pool had off the top of my head, but you know, always makes things exciting when there's a big money and big placement and big reputation at stake here. And so let's go ahead, jump right into it. We see both players doing the exact same build order as they have the first few games. There is a fairly standard toss opener, which is exactly what you see here. You get your gateway, then you get your gas, you get your second pylon, and all the while you are chrono boosting probes, unless you are going for a 4-gate, in which case you only chrono boost twice, which I don't know if they actually may have only chrono boost twice, but either way you see both of them trying to get out those probes as quickly as possible. Both of them are already up to 17, and we are only 3 minutes into the game, and so they have then thus produced 11 probes in about 3 minutes time. And because they only take about 20 seconds each, that shows you just how fast and just how badly they want those probes. So both players so far almost the exact same. WhiteRa doing the first differentiation, throwing down this gateway, and this actually looks like it might be a 3-stalker opening is I believe what it is, if I know my Protoss builds correctly. So what we'll see is we'll see a stalker being made out of this, and then one being made out of each of these, and there is the stalker, which will of course 1 + 2 gives you the number of 3, and the number of the counting shall be 3. 5 is right out. It is a 3-stalker opening. I hope someone got that reference. I'm sure most all of you did. But we'll have to see. This 3-stalker opening, really what it is, it gives you a lot of map control. Of course, stalkers being some of the fastest ground units alongside zerglings. Zerglings without speed are actually the same speed as stalkers. So they definitely give you a lot of map control, and of course they do have a good amount of health. They have a combined 160, and of course if they lose their shields, you can indeed micro back in order to make sure they don't take more, and you can just do a little poking, prodding, of course get the map control, maybe do some scouting, kill a probe, kill a zealot, little things like that. And there we see Grubby going for the robotics facility, so he is opting to kind of sacrifice map control temporarily. You see he has very little presence on the map. He has the probe and the stalker, but of course WhiteRa, just by having that tower, does give him a fair bit of map control, and it looks like he is going to pick off that probe there, and so that is definitely good for him. As it has been said, probes are the scariest unit in the game because they can build proxy pylons, they can build cannons in your base, and they are just overall a very scary unit. They are a Zerg's worst nightmare, they are a Protoss's worst nightmare, and they are slightly to a lesser degree a Terran's worst nightmare. Of course, Marines are very good against earlier units out of Protoss. You don't really have to worry about a 4-gate quite as much. I don't know if I've ever seen a 4-gate against a Terran, but you know, I'm sure it could be done, especially by someone like WhiteRa, who will do any build against any race. If he wants to, he will make it work. So we do see Grubby getting at that first Immortal, opting to get that before the Observer, as you can see there in the Units tab. And that will, of course, allow him to be totally safe from any particularly stalker-heavy pressure. Immortals are, of course, very good units overall, doing 20 damage a shot. to all units, including zealots and sentries, but they actually 4-shot an immortal, doing that 50 damage per shot. That takes them to 100. That takes the stalker to 10 health in 3 shots, which is within a roughly 4-second period. So that right there is pretty quick. And we do see WhiteRa opting to get that observer first. Again, he knows he has these stalkers. He had, or has, a little bit of extra map control. He made Grubby back in his base a little bit, so he does feel a little more comfortable getting out that observer just a tad before. And these observers actually might cross each other mid-map, and we'll have to see with these stalkers out there. WhiteRa picking off another probe, very good of him. But with this stalker out there, if these two intercept, WhiteRa might actually be able to pick off the observer. And are they going to see each other? Yes, they do. And all of a sudden they're going to be like, oh hey, and you do see WhiteRa temporarily turning around, but then realizing, there's other units on the map I have to deal with more than the observer. And we see a WhiteRa, or not a WhiteRa, we see an expansion coming down from Grubby, and just as I'm saying it, an expansion coming down from WhiteRa. Now the question is, do either of these players see the other ones? Yes, WhiteRa sees Grubby's, and Grubby sees WhiteRa. Of course, both of their observers crossing over that at the exact same time. So it's definitely good for them. Looks like WhiteRa, no, Grubby actually opting to get a second observer. Again, very good. It just gives you that bit of map control. WhiteRa looking to possibly grab a third pretty soon if Grubby allows him to, going ahead grabing those rocks. And both of them, as of right now, have very similar armor compositions, or army. 2 immortals each, and then WhiteRa has 5 stalkers, 2 sentries. Grubby has 2 stalkers, 3 zealots, 3 sentries, and of course that extra observer. But WhiteRa with a decent worker count advantage. He is up to 5 ahead of Grubby for now, but now that Grubby has that second nexus up, you see he can be producing them 2 at a time, while WhiteRa can only be doing 1. And both players, their robotics base, are just about to finish. You see WhiteRa hiding his near the back of the base, Grubby kind of near the back-ish as well, at least a little far from the entrance. But, of course, all these Protoss games will eventually transition out of, say, something like Blink Stalker tech into Immortals, and then later on into Colossi. You can occasionally see something like Zealot Archon used, as well as Dark Templar come into play. But really, once a player has Colossi, you kind of need to start getting your own. This is one of the things, like in ZVZ, the best counter to Roaches is Roaches. In PvP, the best counter to Colossi is Colossi, or maybe Carriers, but that's a bit less viable. So we do see Grubby actually being the one opting to go for some special tactics here, a la WhiteRa, getting that getting that Warp Prism speed, and the Warp Prism coming out right now. I don't know where it is rallied. Let us take a look. It is sent straight to this Immortal. Looks like a little engagement went down there, the remains of a Stalker, and Grubby does have his first Colossi out. WhiteRa should have his out very soon. I'd imagine he's actually getting up a second Robo, so WhiteRa going to be doing that 2 Colossus production. He has the Thermal Lance on the way, which Grubby has not yet started. But, of course, again, Grubby does have that Warp Prism with that speed, and that not only serves for harassment purposes, but it gives him a mobile pylon, so he doesn't actually have to worry about deploying a proxy pylon. Of course, if he wants to bring a probe and do it, which he does, he can, but it's not as immediate of a concern. It looks like what he's going to do is poke at the front while do Colossi drops, or not Colossi drops, that would be crazy, Immortal drops in the back of the base, and it seems WhiteRa has no idea this is going to be coming into his base. You see, oh, is he going to see it? He is going to see it very briefly, and yep, he did take a good look at that, so we're going to see units running to the back at the same time. These units over here just poking and prodding at the assimilator. This is bringing back nightmares of when Terrans used to siege up down here against Zergs. They still do sometimes, but things haven't balanced, and look like the robotics bay might get sniped before the Thermal Lance can finish. No, it survives with 100 HP. WhiteRa getting very lucky that he did indeed see that Warp Prism. He is prepared for it, and of course as soon as that Thermal Lance finishes, that Robotics Bay has served its purpose, at least in terms of upgrades, but you do need it to get out the Colossi. And even though WhiteRa is ahead on Colossi for now, and definitely ahead on supply, as you can see here, if Grubby can shut down Colossi production for a good 45 seconds or whatever it takes to build a bay, he can catch up significantly, especially off this 2 Robo. Once again, the Colossi doing some poking, killing off a few probes. Speaking of probes, taking a look at the worker count, we see they are exactly the same. So let's see what accounts for that difference in supply that WhiteRa has, that advantage. They currently have the same number of probes. WhiteRa does have 2 extra Colossi, as well as 6 or 5 extra Zealots, and he's down by Stalkers on 2, or by 2, but of course The Zealot and Stalker differential would be, well, at this point, plus 6 and then minus 4, so plus 2, but those Colossi are so much supply. That is the primary part of the difference. We see Grubby has caught up the Warp Prism flying right over the army right there. Did not lucky for him get picked off, but he did kill the Robotics Bay. I'm sorry I missed that on the minimap, guys. I was too busy rambling. And what is WhiteRa doing here? He did have the Robotics Bay in production again, so he could start up on that Colossi production, but as of yet, he has canceled it and might be opting to go for some other tech path. Let's take a look at what it is as soon as he reveals that. But again, he knows he has a pretty good Colossi count, so he's not too worried about simply getting overrun right now. But we do see Grubby about to catch up. He is producing these 2 at a time. One is about to finish, as well as Thermal Lance, both blades grabbing their third at the exact same time. And I think one thing that's really cool to watch, and what is this going to do? And there's a Twilight Council, actually, so Grubby is going to be spotting that, and look at how fast that Stalker dies. But luckily, Zealot's doing well, but Grubby doing a great job maximizing the cost efficiency of those Immortals. But as I was saying, I think it's very interesting to watch. I'm just going to follow this while I talk. It's very interesting to watch how professional level players, they have such very similar game sense. They both know, because opposed to many of us Platinum, Diamond-ish levels playing, we're like, I guess I can take a third now. Both of these players at the exact same time sensed, okay, I'm safe to grab a third right now because of XYZ. And both of them just grabbed their third as soon as they knew it. And you see both of them have that game sense because they both thought it at the exact same moment. So now WhiteRa getting his Templar Archives as well as his Robotics Bay. Once again, that's a lot of gas. But Grubby also getting the Templar Archives. He did see that WhiteRa canceled the Robotics Bay. Well, I'm not sure exactly what that Colossi is doing right there. Looks like he's having a little bit of a seizure or mental breakdown. We do have Grubby pushing out across the map, and let's see the Colossus count. Grubby is currently up 7-5. WhiteRa has an advantage in the Zealots, but that's really it. He does have a probe advantage by about 9. So if he can continue to hold for a little bit longer, then that probe advantage will start to benefit him more and more, simply because the longer the game goes on, the more workers you have, the bigger the difference is, simply because you'll start to be able to have more units. He should maybe transfer a few just because he's starting to get mined out his main. Grubby, it seems, has done that indeed. You can see there's maybe a few less workers than optimal right there, or than you would have at full one base saturation before it starts to get mined out. And we do see WhiteRa starting up on those Archons. The Warp Prism still running around here. It did come back in here. I'm not sure if it got many kills, but the Zealots and Cannon in position to defend that. And WhiteRa getting up those extra gases. Of course, Protoss and really all the races crave gas at this point in the game so very much. He says what you want, and there's the big transfer from WhiteRa. You actually see there's only 30 minerals left on this, 120 left on this, so there he goes, transferring more. So Grubby's actually done a very good job making sure that these don't get mined out too fast. You see is a little more than WhiteRa, but of course that is not a that's not going to make a huge difference in this game, so both players are still essentially 2-base. Grubby trying to do a little bit of harass there with those Zealots, but unfortunately they were not able to do any damage. WhiteRa too good for something crazy like that to happen. So once again, what is this Warp Prism going to be doing? And really quick, before a big final battle, what is the one to... Dang it, what is the way to show only the screen? I know there is a way to do it, but I don't know. I don't think it's that. No, it is. Ooh, nope, I just hit the name. But, oh well, I cannot remember what that is. I'll have to look it up eventually, because it just looks so cool when you see the big battle and you can just make all this interface go away, which you'd be surprised how much space that frees up. We're very used to playing with the interface because you normally play with the interface, but it does make a big difference once again. So you see both these players stockpiling quite the good amount of gas. WhiteRa does have a supply advantage, but Grubby's actually able to get a few worker kills there. So if we take a look at the workers killed, Grubby has killed 14, WhiteRa has only killed 5. Now I'd imagine most of that 14 is just because, you know, you drop back here and while they try and rebuild it, you pick off a probe, and then you drop back here and while you try and do it, you pick off a probe. We actually have a fleet beacon on the way from Grubby, and WhiteRa actually is faking out Grubby right there. That's very nice. You see, he does have the fleet beacon, but he's chrono boosting this when there's nothing on it. So if you don't understand what that's doing, it's just a bit of mind games. You would normally only be chrono boosting the Nexus at this point in the game if you are going to be getting a mothership. So Grubby thinks, okay, he's getting that mothership pretty soon. It is already in production. I need to be a little hesitant here about how I engage. But WhiteRa, in fact, does not have that. So taking a look at the units tab, we see there is not a mothership yet, I should say, from either player. WhiteRa actually has 2 Warp Prisms now. What is going on over here? The Warp Prism actually doing a lot of harassment. It looks like it's going to kill a good number of workers. He has overwhelmed the Zealots of Grubby, and it looks like his Zealots with that charge are going to be extremely effective running back in here. At the same time, we have more harass going on over here. I'm not sure exactly what they dropped. Probably more Zealots, it seemed. So if we take a look at that Workers Kill tab now, we see WhiteRa killed 20 workers right there. So he is up 66 to 36 probes. This has been spotted. It actually might be killed because Immortals do insane damage. And there's the cancel from WhiteRa. He will simply have to remake that. We see him once again. He's harassing these Archons, picking off one right there. And once again going into this mineral line. WhiteRa with the special tactics harassment doing a lot of damage here. And at this point in the game, a worker count that low as what Grubby has, 25, can really cost you. And you see he's not really reproducing probes simply because at this point in the game that is not what you're focused on, and if you do not constantly make units, it's very easy to simply get rolled over. And Grubby wants to make sure that doesn't happen. He is, in fact, getting the mothership of his own, and WhiteRa actually not getting one, leaving Archons and High Templar behind. And he is opting to use that fleet beacon to get carriers nonetheless. But of course, what else would you expect from WhiteRa getting the Graviton Catapult, as well as the +3 Protoss attacks? And this game has been going for quite a while. We can see we're at 22 minutes into the game. Taking a look at the units lost, it's actually almost entirely even. And that's really where that difference in worker count will come into play. And we see WhiteRa actually sack, that I'm assuming was intentional, actually opting to sack some supply right there in order to get more units out. I'm not sure exactly what. There goes more Archon, more High Templar, and there goes that 4th base once more. And as I was saying, at this point in the game, when you have almost the exact same amount in units lost, so actually WhiteRa's behind by about 1,000 now. I'm not sure exactly where it's happening, just right over here, I suppose. Having that worker advantage is huge. You see, he's still up 35 to 64. Grubby's producing a few more workers, as you can see in the production tab, but he's not going to be chrono boosting them out. And even since they've traded fairly equally, if WhiteRa has more money to use because he has more probes and more bases, it will definitely play out to his advantage. We might have a big engagement coming soon, but neither player is really going to want to engage up this ramp. Of course, with the Colossi, you can see the high ground. It's not the end of the world, but it can be a little disadvantageous. And we do see 12 Colossi from Grubby. How many do we have from WhiteRa? From WhiteRa, we have 7. So that is not bad at all. By the way, sorry, I always say WhiteRa, guys. It's really hard to say WhiteRa really quickly when these big engagements are happening. We also have Carrier mixed into the mix, but it does have a lot of Archons, so this can soak up a lot of damage. And of course, the Colossi do not do extra to them. So what is going to happen in this engagement? All the units are charging in. We see the Interceptors doing what damage they can, but all of WhiteRa's units dying extremely quickly there. He immediately pulls back. He thinks he is in trouble, and I think he might be right. The Carrier might get picked off if he isn't careful. It looks like it is going to get picked off by those Archons. WhiteRa retreating to his 3rd base to maybe gain a slightly more favorable engagement. Those Zealots in the mineral line getting shredded. Oh, beautiful feedbacks going down on those Archons, taking out a lot of their shield. I'm assuming that's what that was, unless I'm just totally wrong. We have all these guys attacking right here, but it looks like WhiteRa is actually getting decimated in this battle. He's down 91 to 151 supply. He's warping in a lot more units. All these probes are going to die in just a second. We have a High Templar chilling here. Might be able to do a last second feedback to maybe do something, and we actually have this base being totally killed. I'd imagine quite a few probes were as well. Yes, WhiteRa Grubby up to 50 workers killed, so he did get quite a lot in that engagement. WhiteRa is down by about 80 supply right here. He's making Colossi, he's making carriers, but this huge army of death is outside his base. Good game, well played from WhiteRa, and the series will go to Grubby. Now, I'm gonna take a look. Oh no, don't restart. Oh, that wasn't good. I want to try and fast forward. Oh wait, no, I guess I can do that, can't I? I want to take a look at one, exactly what was feedbacked in that final engagement, and two, I suppose what went wrong for WhiteRa. And so we can look at exactly what happened right before that engagement. Take a look at unit compositions and whatnot. And again, this is just going to be a bit of my trying to understand exactly how these dynamics work in Protoss versus Protoss, exactly what the compositions should and should not be, engagement positioning. So I'm just trying to learn a bit. You guys want to learn with me? Feel free to keep watching. Of course, the game has ended. We have about 3 minutes left on this little clock. I am fast forwarding at times 8. Alright, so it looks like they're going to be engaging pretty soon. So just before WhiteRa engages, I am going to pause it. Now, okay, the big note is that he sacrificed all those zealots. So that might actually be a big difference. So you see, okay, so actually one big thing, they are both at 195 supply. WhiteRa has 30 more workers. That means if we take a look at what is it, army supply, control A, he's down by almost 30 supply on the worker, or on the army count. So that is not going to be advantageous for him. We take a look at the units, we see he has a lot of Archons, 12 to 3, but he does have less Colossi, he has less Stalkers, he has one more Immortal and a Carrier. But really, these Immortals, they are fairly good, but they do not have a huge range, as you see. Where is it? They have a range of 3, which really, that's not even the range of a Stalker. You really have to get up close and personal to do that, and without the lots of Zealot support that he might need for this, we'll get to see, really, WhiteRa runs in, and before he can really even engage with most of his army, look at how much damage he's taking. He lost an Archon and took some shield damage on these units and didn't do... Oh my god, did not get off a single shot on that army. And then from there, we just have the engagement, which takes place up in here, which we'll watch unfold in just a moment. So you see WhiteRa is going to try and run back. No, he does try and engage right there, but yeah, again, he lost or no, that was the same engagement. He lost those Stalkers and that Archon so very quickly. He might try and engage again after warping in a bunch of Zealots. He does engage, but look at just how much splash damage those did, and the Zealots in the front for Grubby soaking up damage, and then he just kind of runs in, has some better positioning. He's got a pretty good concave coming from White right here. Okay, so what got feedbacked? This is the last thing I'm going to look at. That will be the end of this replay. I believe it was the mothership that WhiteRa feedbacked, because I was thinking feedback doesn't affect shields, does it? That is EMP. But the feedback on the mothership, yeah, it does get feedback. Watch, and boom. And yeah, so that was very good from him. But yeah, we just see WhiteRa without the supporting units. He just kind of gets steamrolled here. And so that just teaches you a little bit about sacking Zealots, Protoss versus Protoss, and worker counts and supply being very deceiving. So I hope all you guys enjoyed. Watch the stream, twitch.tv/rcraftgaming. It runs 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern Time, which is 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Time. It is a very fun tournament. I will be helping to commentate it. This is a fun little King of the Hill. Sign up. There's a chance to win pizza if you participate, as well as get Reddit flair. Keep watching my channel. Subscribe. Send messages to me. Comment. All sorts of wonderful things. Thank you guys all very much for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon.